like if I prepare in advance, I can do the book and then the comic book in 1 week. And then I'll be like a real Lovecraft aficionado. But it was cool. I enjoyed it. I listened to it at work today when no customers were in. What about you, Stephen? Did you read it?
Yeah, I got through it. Just the one, just the main one, which was the Dream Quest.
Oh,
Uh,
wait. Oh, where there was more than one? I just did the Kadath. That's it.
there was a number of comics around the same story. I'm not sure how many stories. There would have been a few stories of the Kadath, wouldn't there,
Yeah, that had
David?
that Carter in that.
Yeah. So
Cool.
there was one particular story which was called the Dream Quest of the Unknown Kadath. So it was that exact title which I did the comic on. David gave us a number of comics, but I've got other things to do during the week. And it was I have come across one of Lovecraft's stories before. There used to be this show called The Night Gallery on TV.
Yeah, I think I watched a couple episodes recently. Like from the 70s or 80s, was it?
Yeah, it came out around about 72, 73, something like that.
Yeah, I think I remember. I mean, I would have seen reruns, but yeah.
Rod Serling would do the intro.
Okay.
There was one story called Cool Air, which always stuck in my memory. And there's this woman, it's sort of set during that sort of semi-Gothic era, and she goes to visit this man who was a friend of her husband who had died. And he's living in this sort of refrigerated apartment. He's got a refrigeration system going, and so the air is always cool, and that's why it's called Cool Air. And she comes to meet him, and he never eats dinner or anything. She starts falling in love with him, and at the end of the story, uh, his refrigeration unit. He explains he's got some special disease, and his refrigeration unit breaks down. And she's trying to get, ice trucks in to keep his apartment cool, but it doesn't work. And then his body bursts out the door and it's been rotting. And he was always a dead body, which was able to animate itself. And he kept himself preserved with the cool air, you see. So it only ends up sort of romantically that she's coming to his grave and putting a little flower on his grave. And it always one of those night gallery stories which really captured me. And then I found out, well, who was the author of that one, Lovecraft?
Oh, yeah.
So there's certainly Lovecraft material which I'm quite enchanted by.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any of it. All I know is that a lot of people just have borrowed his stories, but I've never, I never even seen a movie. But I mean, I probably have, but I just don't know it, because there's so much done from his stuff that just is everywhere, right?
Yeah. Well, certainly many people have taken up his themes. Unfortunately for him, he died in poverty.
Did he? Where did he live? He lived in up in the northeast, is that right?
Yeah, I didn't check up. I know he was married for a good chunk of his life, and the marriage wasn't that great,
I think he
actually.
was from New Hampshire or something like that. I don't know.
Well, New
He was
England.
married. Yeah, I imagine someone like that would have a hard time being married. He seemed like he was really, and he must have been very intense.
His wife was a Russian Jew. She'd escaped from the from Russia after the revolution. I think she was a little bit older than him.
Hmm.
Where was he born? Province, Rhode Island. Where did he die? Province, Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
I noticed the character in the comic book looked a bit like him.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get the comic book.
I'd find one of the ones David recommended readers was C Display X, which just seems to be a lot handier for a lot of stuff.
That's for Windows. She's on an iPhone.
Oh, okay, an
Yeah,
iPhone app.
so what did you say it was again?
Yeah, yeah, it looks like they haven't got one for Apple. It's a
You're
particular Windows program I use as a reader.
But I'll probably just buy, if you just give me a list every week. I don't know why I couldn't okay, so what was that thing you said to access the Google Drive because I couldn't access it?
Google Drive.
What'd you say, David? You said something.
um on your iPad, add Chunky. It's called Chunky.
Chunky.
Look for
Thank you.
Chunky, the app, install Chunky, and
Thanks.
it's a good one.
Okay,
It's one I use on my iPad.
great. Thank you. Yeah. So I had no idea what was going on
And
in
next
that.
week we're not going to do a CBR file. It's an EPUB.
What?
So that has nothing to do with a comics reader.
It doesn't? What are you gonna do? What are you doing next week?
Well, EPUB's a little bit similar to a PDF, isn't it? So you need an EPUB reader or something that can read EPUB,
Hmm.
which
Tell
I
me
assume
about
we've done before. David and me have done, well, I've done it before, I think. I think I've looked at
okay.
something that was EPUB. So
Just get it out of the way. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty good at troubleshooting issues. If contact me and we'll see if we can troubleshoot any problems you have opening any of the files.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So are we talking about this book now? Is this correct? The
yes,
Kadath
we can
one?
talk about it. Yeah, and
Yeah, I want to talk about it. Tell me what the hell was going on.
well, he
So
goes.
who were these people under the ship? There weren't even people there, right?
It's
Who was
weird, but
who was
last night
rowing the boat? I had no idea what was going on.
either you found an image.
Oh my God. The
Oh, right,
whole
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
I was like
There was a ship.
in just a complete, utter confusion. And he was drugged with the wine, and then there are these zoos and the cats. Oh my God, I love the cats. I loved how all the cats banded together, all the different nationalities of cats. They were like, we're all going to come together. We don't care. The Persians, the whatever, the Siamese, we're all coming to help. They're everywhere, right?
Yeah, they were a particular nation in his dreamland.
Yeah, and I like how he has these fantasy animals and just normal animals, you know? He's like, oh, and then there was a zebra. Nothing weird about that. I was really paying attention to the like maybe the first quarter of the book, and then work got busier and I wasn't really listening. And then after I kind of like dropped off, I was completely lost. Then I tried to listen after like halfway, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. He's climbing a cliff. Some weirdo with the thing is helping him. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there's a kitty.
Yeah, well, I was sort of, you know, sort
Oh,
of not
so
real.
he's dreaming all this.
Yeah, he's gone off into a sort of dream world, which sort of suggests has a certain type of reality to it. So it's a
And
sort of,
he's, yes. So he's going to find out what made his buddy go crazy, correct? Or like he went, didn't he have someone he knew that went crazy? He went completely mad and he wanted to go find out why.
yeah, his friend, he discovers his friends in the dream world as an inhabitant of it. And he
Right.
finds out his friend had committed suicide by drowning himself. So he wasn't coming back to his friend wasn't coming back to the real world.
That's right. Oh my God, look at that cat.
So he, at one point, he gets on a ship.
Oh yeah. Those dudes were messed up. They gave him the drugged wine and they kidnapped, then they threw him in the ship, right? And he's like woke up, he's like, no one's steering this boat.
This must be the actual the original story rather than the
Oh, it was so
comic
good.
book. So there'll be slight differences as to how he got on the ship.
Oh, who's that? What's that guy?
I think that's his friends in a sort of a ghastly
Right.
appearance. But I mean, you can see the face here of
Yeah.
the hero is very much Lovecraft's very,
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. Carter. What's his first name again? Carter's first name? I can't remember. Randolph? That's right.
okay. These names remind me of the sort of stuff Edgar Rice Burroughs would come up with.
Mm,
Now, when did Edgar Rice Burroughs started off around World War One, I think, with the fantasy, didn't he?
I don't know.
I was quite enchanted by Burroughs' Venus series, and this sort of stuff uh, was mainstream science fiction at the time, I suppose, and it
Really?
has a certain sort of a naive quality about it, which time was to work against later on, and so you see it develop. You see people like Edgar Rice Burroughs who made the claim this rubbish actually sells. I could write tons of this rubbish, and so he did exactly that and wrote.
Yeah, but it wasn't as popular, so.
Oh, he's pretty big, Burroughs. He was very, very
Oh.
big. Whereas
Yeah,
Lovecraft
but
is
he doesn't
more,
have the staying power that Lovecraft does, right? Lovecraft is like
Lovecraft.
the prince. Lovecraft is like the prince of horror. Like Prince as in the artist formerly known as Prince. Everyone would take Prince's songs and cover them, and everyone takes Lovecraft stories and covers them.
Well, he has he's more today. He's regarded as the connoisseurs fandom, whereas in his own time he didn't achieve much popularity. But then within so many years after his death, he was extremely popular with a certain artistic set that for certain poetic artistic sets looked at him and thought, well, yeah, he stood out.
Right. That sucks that he didn't get his due rewards. But then it's even better though, because he just wrote because he, felt he had to.
But you just got to hang
It
around
wasn't
for those
because he
few
was
extra
like,
years.
what?
You have to hang out around for those few extra years. Got to
Right.
keep the health up.
He
If
just
you
loved
just hang
it.
around long enough, eventually you'll achieve fame in your time. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche was one who was just beginning to get really noticed just as he went crazy and was catatonic for more or less the last 10 years of his life, becoming a tremendously famous during that time.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he went crazy in 1889. The popular opinion is he had a sort of a benign brain tumor.
A benign what? Oh, a brain tumor.
Yeah, because he suffered from violent headaches and showed a lot of other symptoms. And that he probably had an embolism, and that sort of wrecked his brain a bit. He was sort of a little bit vegified after that.
Oh man.
But see, this is another guy who just, if he had hung around for about another 10 years, he would have
Right.
had fame in his own lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I can see why the comic books are popular is because it's just really fun to draw all of his little imagined creations. It's probably really fun to make a comic book. Oh my God, what are they doing?
Yeah, it's
Were
weird. I
those
was having a
freaks?
dream last night, and some of the characters look like this. I was on a train going to a different part of the central business district, and there was this huge lake, and there was a sort of monster following. Although I was watching the hero, and the hero goes in the lake and he hides amongst the reeds as a sort of Godzilla monster chases him around, and then the monster goes back on land and he turns into creatures looking about a bit like these guys, and they sort of get arrested on the train.
Are you talking about a dream you just had?
Yeah, this morning, yeah.
Man,
So I haven't lost it yet. I still have some crazy dreams,
oh my gosh, I love my dreams. I love my dreams because I wake up and then I'm like, thank God that was a dream.
I had a dream of,
And then I'm like, what the fuck? Oops, sorry. Should I not swear? Is it against the rules?
no, not with us.
All right, good.
I had a dream about Jane Fonda once when I was 17. I've been
Oh, yeah.
waiting for that dream to come back for
Yeah, I remember.
half a century.
Mine was with Andy Travis from WKRP. Yep, the heart wants what it wants.
Oh, I think we're just fooled by our own desires, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I'm getting this opinion that, when you're a 17-year-old boy, you think sex is like top of the list. Then one day you get older and you realise, gee, all these inclinations and I've had are just sort of, it's just stuff, going around in your mind, and you start to think, are we actually being fooled by something?
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
this is,
you're right. It's you're being fooled by your own mind. I know what you're talking about. Because you want things to be a certain way, so your brain makes them that way because it's more fun to think of things that way. But then in reality, it's really not that great. And then you wonder why everyone is so dissatisfied.
yeah, well, they're suckers for the salesman called nature and reality
Oh my gosh, yes.
that comes knocking at your door, offering you all these interesting products,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably pays to be discriminating.
Oh, yeah. Yes, one of the first things people do to children is blur the lines of fantasy and reality. And in my opinion, you shouldn't be doing that. You don't lie to kids because you think it's fun. You don't tell them there's a magical man who's going to come down the chimney. That's freaking creepy. And it screws with kids' heads. You start telling them magic stuff is real, and then all of a sudden they can't distinguish between fantasy and reality. It's an issue. But
Uh,
I like these books. Who's going to think this shit's real, right?
I can't connect to your Wi-Fi network.
Uh-oh.
You can find setup instructions in the help section of your Alexa app.
So
that
what's
must be your
happening here?
TV.
What's happening here? Oh, wait, do I remember this part? Maybe. Maybe. There was so much going on. It was like every sentence. It's just, I feel like I have to get used to his writing because it's very, uh, it's so descriptive. It's really great though. It's just, it's very, I'm gonna have to get used to it.
Also, it's 100-year-old writing.
Yeah, I love it. It's very, pleasing to the ear.
How goes your quest? I must travel to Salamis.
And in between, I found a good soundtrack at the store. I can't remember the name of the band. Karma to Burn. They have a good album that's instrumental. So it was good listening in between when people would come in the store. I would play that album, and all the songs are just like very Trek-ish. They just reminded me of a Trek.
Okay, he finds his friends who
Oh,
had gone a bit
see, that must,
insane.
is this toward the end?
Uh, let's just see. Well, yeah, you're on the home stretch, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he found his friends yet. I didn't get to where he found his friends. He was still doing all kinds of weird stuff.
Is that you,
Good was
Ellie?
happening.
You must not
Oh,
speak my earthly name, for that name is behind me now, and I do not wish to recall it.
all right.
It is you, my old friends. Who are you calling olds? So
Mm.
he's reverted to his as to a very young man, very young. I grew bored of the palace of 70 delights. I mean, 70 delights, just 70. As for the cloud castle, well, when you've done it once. So you dreamed this up, a little slice of home. I settled as many people as had the most English faces. They take lessons to learn the accent, but they still haven't got the hang of it. So he's recreated an English village. And, well, I suppose if I wanted to, create a place to settle down in, I suppose an English village is a
English
possibility.
Village. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? I just saw
Yeah,
an ad for Delaware. I'm like, fine.
yeah, I always wonder, it's like, you develop interests. It's like you're subject to temptations. I mean, by temptations, it could be anything that you just want to go beyond what you once knew.
Yeah, or just forget about what you once knew and relax.
Well, it's like when you're a kid, you didn't have that many elements in your mind and you're more preoccupied with your own being.
Oh, yeah. When you're a kid, you're basically in survival mode half the time, probably the whole frickin' time between school and home. Oh my gosh.
Body found. The body has been found washed up on the Innsmouth shore. Artist missing. Boston resident artist and prominent member of the Boston Art Club, Richard Pickman has been.
Now, did the cats feed him throughout? Where was he getting his food? I guess he
Well,
don't need food in the dream world then, right?
possible.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I remember one time this person was like, and they gave me sustenance or something. And but that was the only time I heard of him eating. And maybe it was that was on his way to the dreamland. And then once he got there, he didn't need to do it anymore or something like that.
I miss not having a cat around the place, but it's that strange land beyond the peaks that frightens them so. Something so disquieting about that desert. It's best not to speak of it, for to speak of it is to acknowledge its existence. Its existence is a terrible thing. But it does exist. Aye, it does. Oh, so he's found him some. I've got another one showing up. I can find the new cliffs of onyx. So onyx is some sort of gemstone.
Oh yeah. I remember in the beginning they were making like ruby, they had things made out of rubies, decanters and stuff.
Okay, that must be the quarry. Okay, this is where he gets hit by a
Oh
guy
yeah.
riding a bird, a giant bird.
Yeah. I remember he kept saying he saw condors or something. That was another regular bird that was in there. Maybe that's a condor.
Yeah, it does tend to look a bit like one, doesn't it? Now he's meeting these creepy face guys again.
Oh yeah. With the weird hair and the short shoes. God, their shoes are so hideously short. That cracked me up. Oh man. Arf. Who's saying arf?
Ah, right, these are some sort of beast men in
Oh
cage.
man, what are those things? They
Well,
were
it's a bit
probably the
like
runners. They're just slaves.
Flash Gordon, isn't it? You ever seen Flash Gordon, the old serial? There's always a few beast men in that.
I mean, I watched that movie about a million times.
Oh, you mean the 1981?
Oh, it was so good. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be Princess Aura or Gale. I was like, who, you can't decide between the two. They're both just perfect.
Yeah, that was quite an amazing film at the time,
Oh
and
my
they didn't
God, I
really
loved
follow
it.
it up.
It was mesmerizing. But yeah, I never really read those comics. I probably should. I bet they're fun. Flash is a true hero.
The original Flash. We did the original Flash Gordon here about
You
3 years
did.
ago. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
We did.
That was one of those artists that did the really fine sort of line work.
Alex Raymond.
Wait, her name was Dale, not Gail, right? Dale. That's right.
Dale
Dale.
Arden, I think her name
Yes,
was.
Dale.
Well,
She's
I'm actually quite fond of the joke version as well. That was Flesh Gordon.
oh, don't go there, man.
Well, actually, I'm not actually a big fan of porn shows. I find them rather dull, but Flesh Gordon was just so crazy. It was amusing.
No.
It started out as a pure porn film, and then they turned it into a satire. Well, a really good satire of the original Flash Gordon.
Those are the night gaunts. The night gaunts. Pay attention to them. They're going to come in
You said they're
prominence later
night
on.
what?
The night gaunts.
God.
The Night Gaunts, right.
Gaunts.
Pay attention.
Yes.
We're going to be back to them.
I remember hearing
eventually.
about them. Yes.
They're going to be important later on.
Okay.
Later on. They come
Nice.
to be important.
I don't know what those things are hanging there. Looks like bats.
I think those are the night gaunts. Those are the night gaunts, yeah.
Mm.
All right, so they're sort
Are
of
they what drain the zebra? Mm. Nobody, no, because those had duck feet.
They'll come into prominence later on.
Oh, what's that thing? He loves
Uh,
octopus creatures, doesn't he?
it's some sort of monster with a squid head.
Love it. Did he ever
Um,
do any illustrations?
I don't think so.
That would be really cool if he did. They were all just floating around in his head. I wonder if he had any buddies that he was friends with, like artist friends, that he was like, draw this for me. Probably, right?
Well, cartooning wasn't as advanced as it is today.
Yeah,
That
but
was
I
back
meant,
when
back when he was there, they would have just done like an ink drawing or a pencil drawing or something.
they did have cartoons, but the whole genre was in its infancy.
Hmm.
Well, I'm just thinking Alex Raymond did a small cartoon for a newspaper, or probably had a number of newspapers, but
Oh, he's
he
gonna
would have been
borrow.
getting paid a small fortune only for, so many strips of work each week or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So why is he gonna borrow a gaunt? That doesn't sound good. It's not a wise decision. What's he gonna do with that thing? Oh, is it like a guide? Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, Kadath. I'm not too sure what Kadath is. Is he?
What's that thing? Ooh. Ooh. Nice. Like the River of Styx.
Yeah, I've read ancient Egyptian stories, and a lot of them are like this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Now, what's that? Oh, is that one of those frog things that had frog bodies? They were all gelatinous, and then they had, oh man, those things were gross. I bet that's what that,
These are the creatures with the squid heads again.
yeah, the frog bodies. Except they were gray.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it would be a sort of frog body. Yeah.
They were gray and slimy. Now, who's that guy? Who's the black guy?
That's
Oh,
Kadath, I think.
whoa.
Mm,
So he's
Laptop's a
the
little
guy that
laggy
he
or
went to
something.
go see, right? This is the whole thing, right? He's who he wanted to see the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is he saying? I want to see what he says when he sees him.
And of course, as always, I forgot to mention it's Lovecraft's birthday Tuesday,
Oh,
which is why we're doing this, because it's his
great.
birthday on Tuesday. Happy
They
birthday,
don't live here
H.P.
anymore.
Lovecraft.
Oh, look at that.
I always forget to mention when we do a celebration of someone's birthday.
That's great. So marvelous. That sunset. Wistful youth. Go back to your wistful youth. That's his advice.
Yes, unfortunately, my mouse is very laggy, or the laptop is very laggy.
It's all right. I'm getting to see it. It's cool. I'll probably buy it. I'm gonna buy them. It's gonna be fun.
Okay, you sure you want to end up with a half?
I need to read, so this will give me like I need a reason to practice. I've never joined a book club before, so this will be really good for me, especially because it's not boring reading and I like that there's no romance. Like there's no romance in this book. Hooray. Not that I would be, mind it, but like, how most books have to have all these different elements and this is just like,
Okay, romance is much overrated.
yeah, it is.
Okay,
Oh,
so there it goes. Keeps on jumping around.
does not bode well for the dream.
Maybe, yeah, my must be just laggy because it's the
It's all right.
laptop has got too much
You got
on
an
it.
Australian mouse over there.
You don't think it's a mouse, although the mouse is a bit troublesome. I should have bought a laptop from a computer store rather than I got an Acer, which is a name brand one. It was on special. But think in future when I buy anything computer, I'm going to go to a specialist store rather than an ordinary retail sort of store.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the mouse, very laggy.
Got to get that fixed, bro.
Probably just too much on the machine. Okay, yeah, I didn't really suck it in that much. I just sort of went through it.
All right.
There's-
Stop
Somebody,
there.
somebody was telling me about a book which I'm rather interested in now called Sophie's World.
Oh, yeah?
Have you heard of that one? I just found out
No,
about it.
no. Never.
David must know it, Sophie's World.
All right. He's falling. He's going, what is he going back? Is he like coming out of the dream? Is that what falling means? What's going on?
Bah, I don't know what's upsetting. So that somehow he's screwed up. He's back in his bedroom.
Oh, shit. Quest done. That's me every morning when I wake up. Pretty much. Just like, what? Why am I awake?
Okay, he's very optimistic this morning.
Well, that's nice. It's a good way to start the day, sunny and bright. Oh, he's putting on his red hat. He's going out to town. Look at that. Whoa. Cool. Well, I'm glad he won an award. He deserves it.
Well, the comic book industry is one where they mutually give each other awards, I imagine. So if you're in the
Doesn't
right,
mean it wasn't well deserved.
so if you're pulling the right social strings,
Well, that was cool.
Thus, our Lovecraft journey begins.
I love it. It's going to be so fun. I'm going to get much better at understanding what the heck's going on. I know it.
We got a long way to go here. This is going to be a year or two.
Good.
Lots of Lovecraft coming up.
Well, it'll give me something to look forward to.
Lots and lots.
I need some fantasy in my life, right? It counters all the shitty reality.
okay, you got to regard the shitty reality as a challenge, though.
You know, it's a hardship, right? Life is about overcoming hardships.
Well, there's two hard points. There's external reality, and there's our internal reality.
Hmm.
And when people can't change their internal reality, they want an external reality to suit their inner inclination. And that's kids. One thing I think I'm learning from philosophy is the great point is made that most people have a great deal of difficulty growing up, maturing. And the vast majority of people remain at the stage of a teenager. And they get older, but they remain teenagers. And I was reading a bit of Kierkegaard, the philosopher, and he makes a point that a child is very much a person who's very much into satisfying their whims and wishes, basically just playing with their own belly button. So they're living in a world of mental and physical sensuousness. And the first sign that you're an adult is when you start to think about responsibility. And for Kierkegaard, responsibility was the main aspect of ethics. And, you know, as a child, we're just happy. Look, the government takes care of everything. People, smarter people than me, are taking care of everything. I'll just devote myself to my own whims and pleasures and whatever I personally enjoy. But to take responsibility is to rise above that. And then finally, Kierkegaard said that the above that is a level he called religious, where you start to really think for yourself. Don't just be content with information as it's given to you by the world, but you start to look at things very carefully and form really strong opinions of your own or have a basis for your own thought. And that's just recently impressed me because when I look at my life, I've spent most of my life as an overgrown kid, which is probably the story of just about everybody to a different degree.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you just said. And I believe that a lot of it is caused by obviously generational ignorance about how to put forth independent thinking people into the world. I think a lot of parents are either neglectful or their parents have such anxiety about the children representing them the way that they want the children to represent the family, that they don't let the children make mistakes or get panicky when the children might make a mistake and want to tell the children how to do everything. And so then the children grow dependent on their parents in that way. And then they never grow, they never mature. They learn how to do the external part of taking care of themselves, like go to their job and do what people tell them and make enough money to buy things. But yeah, they don't really mature past teenager because they never had to. It's like some parents even never stop parenting or telling or dictating their kid how their kids should think and act and feel. And if the family unit is really close, then the child just becomes like a puppet of his or her upbringing or upper surroundings and upbringings, people that form their sphere of influence. And then the child gravitates towards people that are like his parents and like his family of origin because that's what feels comfortable. So the cycle just continues. And most people die teenagers. That's just the way it is, right?
Well, I think it's actually partly normal.
Yeah.
I think it's the rarer individuals that rise to responsibility, and even rarer still that rise towards really thinking things out.
Well, I know. And then the reason why is because those people get so freaking vilified and bullied and because they're not going along with the norm or not acting as cavalier and frivolous and gay as everybody else. They're like, why are you pissing in everyone's Cheerios? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm just, I'm not going along with it anymore.
Yeah, I thought that's what happened to that guy, Jordan Peterson, although I
Right.
wouldn't say he's the greatest mind that ever existed in history, but he just pointed out some realities before you try to run the world.
Yeah. It's hard
Clean
not
up
to.
your
Yeah.
clean up your own room. And I think that's
Hard
what
not to go along with it. Yeah, it's hard. And it's hard to think about facing the world and making your own decisions. And so people just don't want to do it. They want other people to make decisions for them. They want other people to do the thinking for them because they don't want to have to take full responsibility for their own actions and thoughts and things that they say and do.
well, this should be interesting. Introducing Hegel.
Yeah, I like Walter. I like your comment there about the earliest publications.
Thank you.
Yes. Weird Tales. I have a few copies. I have like a big anthology of weird tales that I've never read, which I probably should. I'd buy people gifts and then like I should probably just read the gifts that I buy.
Oh, there you go. You can get them a copy of C is for Cthulhu, the Lovecraftian alphabet book.
Oh yeah, that's cute. Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Stephen, and I agree with you. It's easier to, what's the word? I don't
This
know.
is next week's.
Is to just blow everything off and get drunk. So
I
much,
went through a period of alcoholism.
so much easier. I wouldn't say it, I don't know if it's more fun, but it's no, it's the illusion of easier. It's actually not.
Okay, I'm using Sumatra as my reader.
Mhm.
It's funny. I was just looking at YouTube on Hegel, and they're taking the mickey out of him. Goethe was giving Hegel a hard time, it seems. They talk about a dinner party and Goethe. If you've ever heard of Goethe, the famous German poet.
No, you're speaking a different language to me. I'm not very educated when it comes to like I have a really hard time reading, so I've never read a philosophy book. I've never, you know,
You
that's
can
why
just read the comic books. Don't go for the
I
heavy
I
stuff.
didn't even read it. I want to read the comic books. I do. And I feel like if I have a lot of the Lovecraft books. Like I have that one. And I tried reading it while I was listening, and it was just like, it was a bit much. But I feel like if I practice, see, look at this thing. I got this whole freaking thing right here. And I can read some of the stories and read the comics. So I'm excited. It'll just be really something that I can focus on besides unpleasantries.
This laptop I'm just using the integrated graphics driver. I didn't get a separate graphics card. That might have been a mistake.
Oh, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, separate graphics card usually helps.
I'm not very. See, I used to have a husband and he did all those things for me. So I don't have to worry about that. Well, I do now, I suppose, but nothing's gone wrong yet. So thank goodness. Although my dishwasher just broke. I'm like, why? But you know what? I kind of miss doing dishes by hand. So there. I think it'll be fun. We'll get out the old dishcloth and have a ball.
Yeah, it was
I
becoming a
can
bit
channel my
tricky.
mother. I can channel my mother. She taught me how to do dishes. She did. She taught me all about it. The
She
exact
taught you the
appropriate.
refined arts of doing dishes, did she?
She did. She did. She groomed me for
Getting the
marriage.
polish on those wine glasses.
Yeah, she groomed me for marriage for sure. She told me how to do dishes. Yes, when we had the good dishes, it was very important to hand dry the cutlery and the drinkware. Yes.
Well, in the old days, your high quality stuff was actual silver
Yeah. Well,
before
ours
our
was
modern
probably
stainless stuff
silver
came
plated.
along.
Yeah, it was silver plated. I don't think we could really afford silver. We weren't that rich. But I know, she would always say one day you're going to eat at the White House and you're going to want to know this stuff. So I have good table manners. It's a good thing. All right. So
Cthulhu.
what?
There was a major theme in Lovecraft called Cthulhu, which was this sort of octopus-headed sort of god.
Mm-hmm.
And our reality was just this god dreaming. And if this god was to ever wake up, we'd all disappear.
Oh, well, yeah. I've thought about that before. I've thought about that. So tired of everyone in there. Well, how did it start then? Well, how then? I'm like, can't you just not know? What's wrong with just
Uh,
saying, I don't know? Why do people have to make shit up? You know? Oh my God.
so you don't like
So
your
tired
mind
of
being drilled for information, do you?
what? No, I think it's okay to say I don't know or I'm not sure.
You got a good point.
Used to being around people that will like make things up to pretend like so they feel so they can feel like they're the knowledgeable ones.
I think I have encountered that.
Yeah, and it depends on how serious they are as to how like detailed and far back their stories and the depth that their stories will have where they make things up. Oh my God. It's crazy.
Well, certainly one thing I've encountered, which bothers me, is the amount of people you meet, you know, maybe it's an academic career. They've tried to achieve an academic career and it doesn't always work out. They might get a small role in the university and then they have political differences and then they lose that rather savoury job. But they're always convinced they were like the gift to humanity that was underrated. And I just meet so many people like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. It's never because they're mediocre and annoying, right? No one wants to admit that, right?
Well, our ideal is to rise to the top,
Yeah.
but there's only so much. I had a cousin and she was just a homebody. She worked at home. Then she got a job and, you know, she had office meetings and her little ego started to grow and that wrecked her marriage. She
Why?
just turned into a, you know, went
Office
from a
friend.
person. She just changed personality and was, you know, just living for the fun, even though she had, I think she had about 4 kids or something. And she started to live for herself.
Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I think a lot of people get married to a lot of people get married and they don't understand like what it means. They're just doing it. They're not thinking in the long run. They're not thinking about how to forge a partnership that's going to stand the test of time when they get married. Some people, but you know, most people don't. They're just like, let's get married. I'm bored. Let's get married. So
Well, it probably
they're
worked
really
back in the
immature. Like you said, it's like teenagers getting married.
well, it probably worked back in the days when life was short, brutish and cruel. You know, you could
Well, yeah, right. When you
probably
actually
drop
like,
dead the next year.
yeah, where like you depended on your partner to survive. You actually needed your partner to survive. Then you would like have the impetus to work together and not be dicks to each other just for fun or for spite. Although I'm sure it happened, but like it was more important that you got along and you did things right and you looked out for each other because it literally meant life or death.
Well, we're living in a society which is seducing us away from that sort of commitment.
I know we don't need each other anymore. We can all just, I mean, it's good to have a certain amount of independence. Otherwise, because dependence breeds helplessness. You don't want to be helpless, you know, and compromise your ability to take care of yourself. But at the same time, I see what you're saying. It's like
Well,
the women's movement, I think, ruined things in that regard. Like the women's rights movement, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. The women's rights movement making it so that the women, like the roles are now, there are no roles in marriage anymore. Everyone does everything. The dad has to help with the kids. The dad has to do the shopping. The dad has to cook too. The dad has to clean too. The woman has to go to work. The woman has to do this. Da, 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 da. Everyone has to do everything. Well, that's a little bit difficult for everyone in the family to do everything. I think it's okay to have like traditional marriage roles and to balance out each other's strengths and complement each other's strengths. And there's nothing wrong with that. And like when the women's rights movement starts saying that doing that is somehow like uplifting a hurtful or harmful standard of patriarchy, I just think it's like it sends women the wrong message, like that it's wrong to want to have that kind of marriage, whereas like it's not wrong. In fact, it probably would work out really great if people could get their heads out of their asses.
Well, I think it's
Myself included, like whenever I speak, people think I'm pointing a finger. I'm like, no, I'm talking about me too, so shut up. God.
well, I think it's an issue of technology that it was, 200 years ago, a lot of jobs required male strength. But now we have
They
machines.
still do. But they're hiring women for these jobs and like then the men are still doing the strength work and then the women are holding the sign instead, saying men at work. Now I got a job too.
Well, that was, I think, part of the reason why men got a higher rate of pay in the old days,
Yeah.
as they had to do the heavier work. It wasn't expected that women in employment would do,
That's right.
lift that box or something like that. I remember that from that story, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. Yeah, that was it.
Yes.
When they were setting up some building a place somewhere, the father has to go off somewhere, so he rides out. And the wife tries to do some of the heavy work and she just about kills herself in the process, has an accident because she's just not built
Right.
to handle the heavier stuff.
That's correct. Women's bodies are not made for hard labor. And they're also not made to go out and try and protect the public from criminals. Okay?
I read a book
Understand
called
why people are like so weird. That's
I read a
sexist.
book
No, it's not. It's
I read a
logical.
book called Sex in History. And that was quite an eye-opener. And that was talking about the sexual attitudes going back through history, and not just sex, but of course the sex roles of men and women.
Yeah.
And how they changed over time. And
Oh my God, you know what else they're doing? Feminizing men. Like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you saying, like, pushing all this narrative that men have to be sensitive and men have to be kind and men have to be this and they can't be toxic masculinity? No. I don't know.
yeah, because they're trying to create a race of drones.
I know. They need
And you look,
weak-bodied and weak-minded men in order to do what they want.
well, actually in the beehive or the ant colony, the main force is female bodies.
Well, yeah,
It's
the body.
the males only appear for breeding, I think.
Well, okay.
So
But
maybe that's a grand ambition.
I like men for more than breeding. And women are
But I was reading
good
this
for
book,
bodies. Women are good for more than bodies. Men are good for more than breeding.
and it was a real eye-opener. He didn't just use the words patriarchal or matriarchal. He used other words. He said patristic and matristic culture
Okay.
And he's pointing out around about World War One, he noticed the enormous changes. And like if you went back into the 19th century, the dominant figure was the mother and the son. That was what we'd call the 19th century was a matristic culture. It was built around the woman that ran the household. She was the centre of the social life. But around World War One, things changed. What he termed a matristic culture developed. So, and this was where the daughter takes on a role which is very masculine, and she follows her father. So we're living in a culture which the powerful element is really the daughter's fixation on the father. And they're the ones that have got to go out and emulate their father and take on a male role. And he pointed out, you'll see in the dress, for example, in matristic cultures like the 19th century, the clothing of the sexes would vary greatly. The clothing would be very different clothing for women and very different clothing for men. But in a patristic culture, they merge. And so you end up with women and men wearing much more similar types of clothing. And this post-World War One, you had the women, they threw off all the gowns. This was the era of the flappers, as they called them, these sort of strong-minded, independent women. I was just looking at a movie I've never watched, Cabaret, with Liza Minnelli. And that,
Walter loves Cabaret.
Yeah, Joel Gray's great.
Hey, David, where are you live streaming to?
Twitch and my YouTube channel.
And what are those called?
yeah, I was just looking up the story. I've never watched the movie. I saw ads for it when I was a kid. And it sounds quite intriguing. So it represents the Weimar Republic and the rise of the Nazis. And its warning is that part of the reason that happens was everybody was just so involved in their own belly buttons. Just there to have a good time, don't want to step outside my fun-loving activities too much to really see what's going on. Yeah, it has intriguing elements, of course. The two people become involved with the same guy who's bisexual, and he's some sort of political leader called the Count. And as he says, he's using the Nazis to check the communists. And the homosexual guy says to him, have you noticed that your Nazis might get out of hand? He said, no. When I'm finished with them, they'll just evaporate away, sort of thing. So I didn't realise that Cabaret had this very interesting background story to it. I thought it was just a load of musical numbers, but I'll have to watch the movie now.
Yes, it's great.
So what's your Twitch and YouTube channel? David? What is it?
Sure. There's my Twitch.
And what do you post on there? Like, is it just like it's just going to be under like your comic thing? Is that right? Do you do other things too that I could
There's
watch?
my YouTube.
That would be
I
fun.
think that gets you
Thank
to it.
you.
Maybe not, actually.
I
I'm
need
having
fun things
trouble.
to watch. Nothing like watching fun stuff, right?
Why don't I do this? That doesn't get you to me.
Thank you.
Or does that get you to me?
Plain.
No, that doesn't work either. Okay, well, I don't know what to do.
Am I still here? Oh, mixed it out by mistake.
Oh,
Oops. Oh no, I'm still here.
yeah, just this Friday night meeting and the Monday philosophy meeting, and that's really it, which isn't really my group. And Rick does that one.
Rick, good old Rick.
Oh, I might as well get rid of you. Delete.
I don't know where
There's
I
no
went.
reason to do that either. Delete you. Yeah,
There we are. Now I'm
if you
back.
connect those two,
Uh-huh.
youtube.com/
Okay.
and then add the @ DAVIDROEL 3047.
Okay.
I guess that'll get you to me, but
Okay. Great.
if you ask me why doesn't the link connect the two, I couldn't answer that, but
Really?
so you'll have to do it manually, apparently.
Okay. I appreciate it. I need to find fun things to do.
They're always changing stuff. If you want to get into philosophy,
I don't.
let me know, because I'm pretty good at.
I like talking just casually about it, but I tried to join some philosophy groups, and the people in the groups are really annoying because they're just so
I know.
what is the word?
I know exactly what you mean. That's why I don't go to
They're
them.
just so something.
That's why I stopped going. I don't go to those
It's
meetings
like,
anymore.
God,
I know exactly what you mean.
what's the word? I want to say,
We have an
like,
expression in Australia, full of oneself, full of
yes.
yourself.
And it's just like,
That's why I don't go
you
anymore.
say something and oh God, they're so they're not even philosophical. I'm sorry, but like some of the stuff that they say
Stephen and I have talked about this a lot,
is
but
not
we know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
right. Okay. I'm like, you're not. And then it's almost like they're like a recovery group. It's almost like they're like a support group for people that want to pretend like they're philosophers. And the people that run the group are so, yes, backstrokey, and yes, everything you say is important. And no one can, I don't know. It's just, I've never joined a philosophy group, so I don't know what it's supposed to be like, but I tried to go. Sorry, I'm going to ramble just for like one more minute. I tried to go to a group yesterday and I knew I was like, I'll try a different group. This guy, Ian Mailing, sent me a link and it was like, and literally within like 5 minutes, I was like, there is no way on earth that I'm going to be able to, that I will even enjoy this group for one frickin' minute. Don't fool yourself. And I'm like, I feel like I felt shitty because I'm like, I'm quitting again. But then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a celebration. Okay. You are learning before you subject yourself to 5 more fucking meetings, you're learning to quit early and when is sensible to quit. But when you know in your gut that it's going to be bullshit and just, oh my God. Oh, they're introducing themselves. And I'm like, they're going to do this for an hour. And then they're going to try and be like, we're friends now. I'm like, no, we're not friends. We're just like, can we just speak about important things and not go on about my divorce or my pedantic day and what, oh, it's storming here for 5 fucking minutes? I'm like, nobody gives a shit if it's storming there or what the, oh my God, sorry. Now I'm going on, but still. Oh my God, they just bug me. I think just people in general just bug me. But I like talking about this shit because it's more fun.
Well, if you're lucky, there is a God.
All right, so David, stop it. Don't say that if you're lucky there is a God. David, so I will discuss philosophy with you if you want, but I'm unlearned. I don't know anything about it. So I'll say something and you'll be like, oh, that's da da da. And I'll be like, I don't know, maybe.
No, no, no. You have the wrong idea.
You
I was
can do
just
that.
you
And
got the
then
wrong
you
idea.
can say meta, and I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking
No, you
about.
got the wrong idea. You got the wrong idea.
Okay.
You got the wrong idea.
Yeah.
That's not what I was saying. That's
No,
not.
I know. I meant I would love to discuss philosophy with people who aren't going to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Well, Goethe the poet recommended staying away from philosophy.
Well, I like the idea of it. You know, it sounds good on paper, but then
He
when you
said,
add human beings,
look what it did to Hegel. You don't want to end up like Hegel.
I don't know what happened to him.
You
Did
know,
he die a horrible death from madness?
it's interesting. I watched this video, and this guy was talking about Goethe's observations of Hegel. He invited Hegel to a dinner party, and Hegel was just chattering on and chattering on. He just kept on telling everybody about his ideas. And it was Goethe's daughter-in-law said, what's with that guy? He's insane. And Goethe recommended, look, really, just stick with reality, go out for walks in nature, socialize with people, do a bit of poetry, refine your speaking arts and stuff like that. And most of all, just keep away from philosophy.
Yeah.
David would probably agree, wouldn't you?
Whenever you introduce philosophy to people, what's the first question they ask?
What
What's
is
the first question?
philosophy?
Well, the first question, Americans, let's say if you ask Americans about philosophy, what's the first question Americans ask?
Can I
First
get
question,
something out of
first
it?
question is why? Why should I? Why should I study philosophy? What's it going to do for me? Is it going to help me in bed? Is it going to make me stronger? Is it going to help my cardio? Am I going to be more employable? Is it going to help my bottom line? Is it going to make me richer? Why? What's the bottom line of studying philosophy? What's it going to do for me? Is it going to make me happier? That's usually what Americans will ask if you say you should study philosophy. Why? What's the payoff? What do I get out of studying philosophy?
Right.
If I'm going to do this, why should I? What will I end up with? There's an answer to that question. The question is, if I study philosophy, will philosophy make me happier? Will it improve my life? There's an answer. The answer to that question is no.
I knew you were going to say that.
No.
I didn't know, but I
Philosophy will not make you happier. Philosophy will not. In fact, it will do the opposite of those things.
yeah.
If you study philosophy,
It's supposed
philosophy
to.
will make you unhappier.
Yeah.
Philosophy will make it harder for you to get along in the world.
As you learn more, the more discomfort you feel, and then you keep having
Right.
to come to terms with your new knowledge. It's like a constant state of,
No, I've experienced the opposite.
If you
oh,
want
well,
to be happy, stay away from philosophy. Stay as
yeah,
far away from philosophy as you possibly can if you
I
want to be
like
happy.
it. I like it though. I like knowing,
So
even
decide
though
what
it
it is your
sucks.
goal is.
It sucks, but I like it. And it's like, I think my goal is like, um, I want to understand. That's what I want. I want more understanding. That's what I want. I want to learn. I want to, and then I want so that the new knowledge when it comes like it's not so jarring, and I
Yeah,
kind of
that's what happened in the Garden of Eden.
get used to like, the awakenings, and it becomes more like not as upsetting.
This is a Garden of Eden. I've got to know.
Right. And
Just got to bite the apple,
I
find out
feel
what's
like
going
though it's
on.
going to take me further away from people. It's going to cause me to want to be around people less, but maybe not. Maybe it'll cause me to be able to be around people more. I don't know yet. But either way,
Just be curious about their insanities.
oh my God. Yeah, I guess instead of being infuriated, I could be curious. That's good advice. Or confused to the point of being scared, like frightened. Oh my God.
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I,
I think
I
curious
wouldn't
is
say
so much
it's.
better.
I would say that my feeling is that you find that it's a real struggle
Yeah.
to understand a lot of these ideas. It's a lot of hard work. I'd say it's sort of like mining for gold. You know, you go out, you're an amateur fossicker, and you'll find a week's wages worth of gold over 10 years. You really have to do a lot of work to get the
Yeah.
result.
I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but if I even have the intellect for some of it.
Well, it helps when you have a
Fine. And
very
I'm like,
sophisticated intellect.
yeah, I'm
I,
fine.
I mean, my
I can eat it.
IQ's my IQ is between 115 and 120, which is still pretty ordinary.
I don't know what that is.
And, you know, you get people, say, who've got IQs, say, about 140. And a lot of this stuff, this philosophy stuff, grammar, all that sort of stuff that's connected with it's a lot easier for them.
The who? The higher
But
IQ people?
there are people with IQs around 140.
Yeah.
When it comes to certain sorts of stuff you learn in school, like grammar,
Mhm.
it's easier for them to get there.
Yeah. I think I have like I just have I'm everyone's brain damaged in some way, I suppose. Nobody comes unscathed, you know, from their childhood. We all have some kind of disability.
Well, I think I noted the thing with most parents is they can't be bothered. Hey, I'll just send you to school. The school will sort you out.
Oh, geez. I almost feel like my parents neglecting me was a good thing, though. Like they did me a favor. Because once I got to know them, I was like, oh my God. When I got older and I was like, oh my God, you guys are creepy. Gross.
Oh well,
Both my
creepy.
parents were really gross. Just like kind of like oafs, like very boorish.
Okay.
And then they would just like pretend, and then once you got the behind the closed doors, they showed who they really were. And then you saw them go out and put on their pretend face for everybody else. It was really creepy.
The mask, the persona.
Oh my God, yeah, just appearances, just their entire life revolved around putting up an appearance for other people to perceive them the way that they wanted. And we had to follow suit. If they deemed that we were perceived in a negative way, I mean, holy mackerel. So it was very important keeping up appearances. I mean, that's a life for so many people. And it's easier, I guess. It's easy because it's like easy to do. It's brainless. It's not hard to please the masses, It's not that hard.
I suppose that people have different temperaments.
Yeah, I was never really good at it. I've always been kind of a
Well, a bit of an
an
introvert.
outcast. I've been kind of like a black sheep. I never really fit in.
Well, some people can mix easily. They find a sort of a pleasure in the company of other people. It's a more intense experience for them, and they don't enjoy being by themselves as much. Like
Yeah.
you, I, even David, are people that are quite happy to be by themselves for much of the time and pursue their own little interests. But other people have got to be hanging with other people to be there.
I
They
find a lot of
don't know
people.
who they are unless they're above somebody else.
What was that?
They don't know who they are unless they feel like they're above someone else.
Okay, there you get a spectrum of the population who want to be the bosses.
Mhm.
Yeah,
In any social scene, in the office, they want to dominate.
yeah. I put myself in a hierarchy, I find. Like if someone comes in the store, I am immediately like they're above me or they are below me. And it's not even I'm not doing it consciously. It's like a gut feeling, I guess. Not the below me part, more of the people that are above me. I get like this gut feeling of shame if I view that someone else is uh more well adjusted or has their shit together, or something that I'm lacking or not able to achieve in life. I'm like, they're better than me. Don't we all put ourselves on a hierarchy like that? Or no, I guess most.
Yes, yes. I've reached a point in my life where I'm not so enamored, so I don't know what the word would be. I'm not so impressed by other humanity anymore. I know that they can do things and they can be good at things. But at the end of the day, I've realised every other human being is just a chunk of meat like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be good at certain things, but they're not absolutely better than me.
Mm.
My existence has a certain value, and theirs does too, but it's not like I'm some sort of absolute inferior. I can be inferior in facts, in factual situations. I could be inferior at driving a car. I could be inferior at driving and flying an airplane, but I'm not absolutely inferior to the other person. But this is a feeling people get when they're overly impressed by externals,
Mhm.
and it troubles them a great deal. It's also the feeling that they want a parent, they want somebody else to take charge of their lives and not really think for themselves.
Yeah.
And I've done that. One day I got a bit older and I started to wake up that you can't just be content to have stuff dished out for you. You need to become more aware of what's going on.
Do you know what? Recently I thought I was never going to be able to do something. I had admired somebody in one of the philosophy groups that I had talked to a couple of times. His name's Lee. and I admired his ability to get along with everybody. And then several times while we were talking, he'd say something along the lines of like, I just let people think what they want, and whatever they want to think is that's okay by me, and I don't say anything, and I'm not gonna. And at first I was like, shame. I shamed myself. I'm like, I don't do that. I don't do that. You're good at that, and I'm not good at that. And then last night I was like, maybe that's not a good thing to be good at that. Maybe people need to hear sometimes that, some things that they're doing isn't good. It's all about perspective. Yes, that is a skill, but is that always a skill I guess it's a skill that's utilized best in certain situations. I just don't know. I just don't have it. I don't have that skill. I can't go along with things if I think that they're bullshit. Now, is that a flaw?
Well, sometimes it's a better element in wisdom to let people
Yeah.
believe what they like to believe.
Right. Like that's what he's saying. Let them believe what they want to believe. And for some reason, I don't have that in me. There's something about it that I just can't. And maybe
Well,
that's a
there's
skill
pieces.
I'll learn one day. Maybe that's a skill I'll learn one day. But I can't. Like, I feel like it's degrading me to pretend that I think it's all right. I can't pretend that I think it's okay unless someone's in my store and they're coming up with something, they're purchasing a shirt. If they said something that was like, bless you, child of Jesus, I probably wouldn't say, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. God's not real. I wouldn't do that. But I don't know. Why let people think that you approve of something that I don't approve of?
Well, it sounds like a masterly social skill to me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, this is
It's definitely a flaw. It's definitely like a social skill I've struggled with, just telling people exactly what I think.
okay. That's being very frank, as they call it.
Yeah, like a German. Okay.
Yeah, well, this is what the Franks originally were, Germans.
Like a German. I don't care.
And there was a Frankish king called Charles the Simple. And the reason they called him simple is he was straightforward.
Yeah, but is it really me that's at fault, or is it the people that have these histrionic reactions to me saying things that they don't like? I mean, who cares if someone says something you don't like?
Well, there's a lot of concern about that
I
in
can
culture
say,
at the
I don't
moment.
think what you're saying is true, and here's why. And then they can call me an asshole and all kinds of names for saying that and like be pissed. They could just say something back. And if I don't like that, I'm not going to call them a name. I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, this is the issue. People have become very thin-skinned these days.
It's like, just calm down.
Well, we've
Calm
had a
down.
change in culture. 100 years ago was a turning point when there were more people living in cities than in the country. And if you go back to the glorious days of Little House on the Prairie again, you didn't get too far with bullshit. You had to deal with realities. That was that sort of culture. It was very straightforward. Called a spade a spade. But we're
Yeah.
living in a different type of culture now.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you tell Albert to go milk the cow and Albert says, "Fuck you, Dad, I'm not milking that goddamn cow," then, that has deeper, that would harm the family. Albert's not going to do that because Albert's
Well, there
not
used to be a term, it was called pulling your own weight.
right, exactly.
But
Now,
today they would
nothing's going to happen if the kid doesn't take out the garbage. The family's not going to starve. And the kid knows this, so that's why he doesn't care. And he has the luxury of saying, "Fuck you, Dad. No, I won't," and storming out because he knows Dad's not going to do jack shit about it.
It's like Matalia, she's a Indonesian student who used to come on this group. And her parents are Chinese Indonesians, and they've got a clothing factory. And they tried to get her in the factory and, learn to do some of the tasks in the factory. And she wouldn't have a bar of it. And she looks back upon that and she realizes actually it would have been useful for her to do that, to learn how to do something practical. And she realizes at a young age, she just wanted to go back in the bedroom and watch her anime cartoons or something like that. And now she realizes, gee, it would have been smarter for me to learn how this factory was run, what were the jobs that were done in it.
Yeah, as long as she wore ear protection, everything would be fine.
No, well, she complained, she was in Jakarta and the factory itself wasn't air conditioned, so it was very hot. They had a house attached to the factory, which was air conditioned, and Chinese don't go out on the streets much in Jakarta because the natives don't like them too much. So she spent most of her time in a bedroom, in an air conditioned bedroom. And yeah, so she's sort of struggling with herself in that sense that she spent too much time with the stuff she liked, fantasy, anime, books and stuff like that.
So you guys have a philosophy club that you go to, is this correct? I don't want to go, don't worry. I'm just asking.
You're probably free to come and join if you want to.
No. No,
It's
thanks.
on David's meetup channel, Millennium and Microcosm on Mondays.
Millennium and Microcosm. See, I vowed I would never join another meetup group.
But this is a studious one where we're given the hard task by Mr. Rick, who spent years studying the finer arts of philosophy. He's a very nice, pleasant sort of fellow, but it's very much about him taking the lead and you trying to understand all the stuff.
I prefer that. I took a wonderful class. It was called The Winning Mindset with Barry Wall. He is in the UK. And half of it, all of it was over my head, but it was like really good. He talked a lot about all kinds of things that I can't remember, but that you guys probably have all spoken about at length. All kinds of good stuff like philosophy and
I thought we'd settled on philosophy being bad stuff.
no, just the stuff that like after I'd take his class, I'd be sick for like 2 days, literally physically sick. Sometimes I'd be in bed, like not physically sick, but like I'd be so depressed I couldn't get out of bed. just like thinking about all this stuff. So this was a year-long class, once a month, intensive, like 2-3 hour sessions. And then he'd give us homework, which I never did. But I love the classes. I love just hearing him talk and explain things. And he also had us watch lots of films, and it was really good. So I like listening to other people talk about stuff. If they're not, he very rarely said anything stupid. Maybe that's why I liked it so much. He was good.
Well, I did learn something in the last few years of studying philosophy.
Yeah.
And what I learned was very interesting. So I was looking at the works of Nietzsche, who's very popular with a lot of people. And he had a warning about our modern culture. And it's quite a profound warning. And he pointed out that our culture is a very superficial one. We live in a very complex world. And you might say we're a body of water. Now, you could be a small but very deep pond, like they had in the Middle Ages. That's what people were. They're living in a smaller world, but it was deep. They took in stuff in a much deeper way. But today, we are just spread so wide with all these different distractions and all these different issues. And what's happened is we're spread very thin. We just don't have time to often see the depths of anything. And I think he was warning this was dangerous. It's particularly dangerous in the fact that our academics are like this. He was an academic, and he was warning about that his fellow academics were shallow. They hadn't really understood the depths of what they're doing. And this is the great melody of our present culture. A lot of stuff, but it's all very shallow. And
Yeah.
it's not that we're shallow because we're bad. It's mainly we're shallow because of circumstance. We're living just in that sort of culture.
Yes. It's like people are operating on this politically correct level where they kind of know what they're supposed to churn out and how they're supposed to perform. And they do that. Does that make sense?
I made an observation about political correctness and all these different little isms that are showing up, like, you've got the whole alphabet, as they call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're sort of like at war with the normies.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have come across this insight anywhere in reading, and I only came across it by accident, which explains a bit of what's going on. And this is just something I learned years ago, and I only began to understood the full element in it now. When I was a young guy, I'll just go walking through the city, and apparently I was a rather handsome young guy. So I tended to find these dudes that were standing on street corners that were trying to invite you into conversations, and generally they were homosexuals. And I met a couple of guys who were rather interesting, so I became friends with them. And one guy was very interesting. He was very out there. He'd been a college professor at one stage, and then he'd run a few record stores. And, I was walking along with him one day, and I said to him, well, this was in the 1980s. And I said, well, isn't it so much better now that you can come out of the closet? And because you remember the old era when there were literally laws against homosexuality. And there was a great deal of public condemnation. And I said, well, you can come out of the closet now. And he said, well, no, I think I preferred the old days. Doesn't that sound amazing? Do you know why he said that?
Mm.
It's profound. He said, well, in the old days, I could be myself. And now there's, you went to a gay scene, it was underground, you could be yourself because the cops could appear at any moment. But when it became legal, all these bitch queens suddenly showed up and started ordering everybody else around. And you just had no peace. You just wanted to be your own person. But you
Who
ended up
came
with
and
these,
started ordering you around? Who?
well, it's like office politics. That in any social group, or you're in an office or wherever, there is somebody who will try to be the boss if they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do good work, but looking back at what he said, and this is what he said he preferred it in the old days when it was illegal that these bosses couldn't come out of the woodwork and try to order him around. But once it was legal,
The
they
bosses.
came out of the woodwork and started ordering everybody else around. And I've realised that explains what's going on now. That, all right, you're in a group of feminists or you're in a group of homosexuals or you're trans or whatever.
They have all these rules.
Well, once all these groups were underground and you were free of domination by these self-appointed leaders, but they're now in every group just this tiny percentage, and they get in there and they use it as their army.
Yep.
You're inducted. You're no longer a free
Right.
person just being gay or trans or whatever
Yeah.
on your own. You are now owned.
Yeah.
This is what the politics is playing out. And
Yeah.
the end result's going to be disastrous
Yeah. All of a
because
sudden, you can't do anything that might affect the group negatively, which
well,
could
you
be
become
anything
an
they say.
outcast.
It could anything that the leadership says could be anything, right?
Well, it goes beyond just say the politics of these sexual groups. Any sort of politics is we live in a democracy, and the unfortunate effect of having a democracy is any group can get up and start demanding a big cut of the pie for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there just isn't enough pie to go around.
Mm-hmm.
And what you eventually end up is the state collapses.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up with a dictatorship. This is what happened to the Roman Republic. It was of a sort of democracy. And then eventually it became too wealthy. And you had the culture of the demagogues. A guy would stand up to take power and he would have his following. Get me in the government and I'll get lots of nice handouts for you. And now everybody's in the game. Everybody wants an easy government job. Hey, I just want to sit in an office, nice and clean, and drink a latte and shuffle a few papers.
Yeah, me too.
That's the sort of job I want. I want to finish at 5 o'clock, go home, watch
Yeah.
my favourite soap opera.
Yeah.
And I want to be paid for it.
I know it.
And there's limits.
Yeah.
And this is why, see, we're actually, from what I'm figuring out, like you got the Anglo-Saxon countries, the English-speaking countries, and they're more or less part of the same group. And then you've got the continental Europeans who are the other West, and they collapsed a century ago. They fell apart. They got the Soviets, they got the Nazis, they got the fascists, and us little Anglo-Saxons were watching them and thinking, hey, what's wrong with you guys? Because we were still successful. But now time and fate is coming for the Anglo-Saxon world. This is my observation.
Do it. What?
And look at it. Hey, 50 years ago, us Anglo-Saxons, hey, dudes, What's wrong with you? Look at us Anglo-Saxons, how clever we are. Now look at what's going on in the Anglo-Saxon world. Is it that easy to solve?
No, we've been weakened. We're being weakened.
Well, originally the British were the big leaders in the Anglo-Saxon world
We're not
until
allowed.
the
We're not allowed to be
1930s.
great anymore. We're not allowed to be great. We have to let other people be more great than us now, because that's the right thing to do. It's kind. It's kind.
Yeah, I actually don't quite believe in that because everybody, the earth is up for grabs.
I'm
And
just
if you
kidding. I
don't
was
grab
being,
it, you'll miss out. I'm sorry, there's just too many people and
no,
only
I
so
was being
much time.
facetious. I'm like, I don't know why people think that like we have to step down for other people. We don't. And we shouldn't, is the bottom line.
I also warn people about the idea of race and culture. And what I noticed, like
I
I was
like to
talking,
warn people too, Stephen. I like to warn people.
you're a prophet.
I just think it's important. People are not receptive to it. Go ahead. Tell me what you like to warn people about race, because I probably think the same thing.
Well, I'm warning that an individual is not a race. We might have racial attributes, but a race is invariably a group. The individual is not that.
That's right.
And for example, you could be an outsider to a race, like you could be an African. And if you want to join the white race, you can, because it's basically a culture, it's a language, it's a
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, it is. It's a way of life. It's a life philosophy. Oh my
And I
God.
was talking with a white supremacist Thursday night, and he doesn't understand that. He sort of thinks race is we're all like, you're cutting off bits of the jelly. And when you cut that bit of the jelly, that's white too. And I said, well, no. The race, like all groups, is a group. You cannot, the individual cannot be a race on their own, cannot be a culture on their own.
No,
They interact with other people to be that.
absolutely not. They can identify as being a part of that race or that culture, but that's just a thought inside their own head. They don't have to identify as being Black. They don't have to identify as anything, because that's a choice. Your identity is a choice. It has nothing to do with your physical attributes. If you choose to make your identity about your physical attributes, that's your choice.
There's a minority of qualities which aren't choice. If you've got white skin, don't stand out in the noonday sun at the equator. You're looking for trouble. That does matter. Little things like that do matter. But
Yeah, but
when
you
it
don't
comes
have
to
to identify
language,
as white, you know?
when it comes to language and using your brain, where you could choose any culture if you want to.
Yeah, you don't have to center yourself around your physical attributes. It's not a requirement, but if you choose to, that's your choice.
Like, yeah, I'm talking to this guy. I've known him a few years, and he's a lot more intelligent than me. He'd have a much higher IQ. Really smart with technology too. But he's just got all these weird ideas. Like, it gets annoying because he'll start going, you'll be at a meeting and he'll just go on about Jews all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that does get annoying, doesn't it?
it's a pity that he couldn't broaden his ideas a bit more and
Yeah.
utilize his mind better. And the weird bit is he lives with a Chinese woman.
Yeah. Yeah,
So he's a
it's
white
just,
supremacist and he lives with a
it's like,
Chinese.
I don't know. There's just, I think people confuse that, if someone is behaving like a dickhead or whatever, and they happen to be Black, why can't we can still say they're acting like a dickhead? Like their skin color has nothing to do with it. If someone's acting like a dick and they happen to be Jewish, I can still say they're acting like a dick without, it doesn't matter, is what I'm saying. And if acting like a dick becomes, or whatever, when I say acting like a dick is just like a certain behavior, happens to be embraced by people who are the same religion, or people who have brown skin, or who live in the ghetto and have brown skin, and if they so happen to adopt a certain behavior and that is passed down generationally, they are a group. They are living together. They do practice cultural norms, and these are passed down to further generations. Like that is a part of, then that becomes a part of their culture, right? And it's okay to critique groups' cultures if that culture is degenerative, and if that culture is actually causing that group to either like bring down the rest of the human race, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to notice.
And I don't think that's racist. I think that's just being cautious. It's being logical. It's being truthful. And it's saying things unapologetically. Like, I can make fun of Jewish people if I feel like it. Why are they exempt from being made fun of, or whatever? Like, they can make fun of white people if they want to. They can make fun of Chinese people. We can make fun of Hispanic people. We can make fun of Black people. Like, why are people so like, you can't make fun of certain groups because that's hateful? Yes, I can. Who cares? Like, what the fuck?
I do respect the point. It's like I know this Arab woman. She's quite smart, but you see the emotionalism. It's something I notice that, particularly with your Nordic European types and the rest of humanity, you tend to find that the Nordic types, they're a lot less emotional and drier. And I suspect in part that's why they got as far as they did.
Maybe it's because if people make fun of them, they don't take it personally, or they're able to admit that maybe, it's not like, it's almost as if like the people that aren't quite as, like, they know that they're not behaving as well as they could, but there's a shame in that. And if anyone points it out, they have this narcissistic rage because they don't want anyone pointing out something that they may have done wrong, or something that they're doing that might be hurtful, or something that they're doing that might be stupid. They don't like, it's like they have this shame and narcissistic rage, and then they cry bigotry or anything else. They say it's your fault. You're at fault for pointing this out. It's not me that's at fault for doing that thing. It's you're at fault for pointing it out. And that's where I feel like a lot of the tension is coming from. Like, the people that are ultra sensitive about being critiqued or criticized or made fun of are the people that are incapable of recognizing that what they're doing might suck.
I think another element, and I think I noticed this, that if you're of a different background and you live in this society, all the symbols of this society are of, let's say, Anglo-Saxons. Everything, you go back to Alfred the Great, even Robin Hood. Robin Hood's a fictional character, but he's an Englishman. And they always feel put down. Like, for example, almost every aspect of, say, culture, technology for the last 500 years, anything new, all the inventors just about have got a white face.
Yeah.
And
So-
for a lot of people,
Not peanut butter.
Stop.
peanut butter is very fattening.
I don't eat it myself.
I'm not sure it rates on the greatest of nutritional scales. I have
And,
to agree.
and if all the inventors of the past, most of the inventors of the past have white faces, that's great. What's wrong with that? Who gives a shit? Why are
feel
we
put
trying to
down.
why are we trying to erase white history? White history is great.
They
Some
feel
of it
it.
sucks, but some of it's really great. We
Yeah.
don't have to take down statues of white people. Come on.
Well,
This is ridiculous.
if they own slaves, I can sort of give it a thing on that because a lot of them here in the South, and where I live in the South, and a lot of them down here were up for the wrong reasons. They're
Oh,
taken down.
they were up because they were awesome slave owners.
Yes,
No, they belong to the right social group.
right. Belong to the right social group, and even after the war, a lot of the women groups down here put up a lot of statues to try to remember the great things of the Confederacy and everything else. And it's like, well, mainly a short war and totally against everything else we stand for and everything else. But they're trying to stand up for their beliefs and understandings and everything else, which really wasn't necessary.
Yeah, that came a lot later in a
Yeah.
sense. I think it was about a 30-year period of the Reconstruction.
Yes.
And then I think the statues started going up like in the 1890s and 1900, that the Southerners wanted to remember their own tradition with pride.
Yes, their lovely tradition of owning slaves.
Well, this is a funny thing. This Arab friend of mine points out, who do you guys think you are? You think you were the slave owners? Because she
Yeah.
studied history.
Everyone was a
The
slave.
medieval Europeans had no idea they'd lost the art of slavery just about. And when the Spanish went to, and the Portuguese went to the New World, they suddenly realised we want slaves. And she said, who taught them the art? Arabs. She said the Arabs were the biggest, and still are the biggest slavers in history.
Mhm.
It's not all whitey.
Well, for example, they used to try and use Irish slaves. And you put an Irishman in the Caribbean, cutting cane, and he's going to last 5 minutes. Not built for the sun. And that's why. They like the Africans, because they could live in that environment and survive it.
Yeah. Well,
So, Walter, you watched that great mini-series Roots, did you?
Well, I have avoided watching Roots myself.
Well, it's a good show.
I know it's a
Very
good show, but
entertaining.
I like my science fiction and things like that nature, so I just never got around to it. Or I never watched The Color Purple, but I knew enough about it to.
Yeah, that was a good movie, actually.
Yeah.
There's been a few good shows, but they're creating a fairy tale narrative.
Yeah.
And like, I remember Roots, and you take, and people treat it as real history.
Hmm.
without real look, if you watch this show and you love it and you think it's a soap opera, cool. But if you start thinking it's real history, I'm afraid it's not the case. Like at the very start of Roots, Kunta Kinte or whatever his name is in his village,
Uh-huh.
and these white slavers suddenly appear. And that's not the case at all. That white men running around in these states, like the Ivory Coast, is just not going to happen because they'd get killed.
Mm-hmm.
They had to buy their slaves at the slave markets.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other thing is if you're a black guy and you're falling with some white guys and you're playing cards with them and they're smiling at you, and the white guys figure, if we sell this guy as a slave, we've got extra drinking money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another way it happened as well. Yeah, I've often speculated, I think, there's a guy, he finds a genie and he thinks, rape's a very evil crime. So he says to the genie, I want you to erase rape from human history. Genie says, cool. And suddenly the whole human race as we know it disappears. Because I realise when you look down your ancestral lines, one would be somewhere there'd be a few or one that's the result of indifferent rape. You wouldn't have a loving father or something like that in this ancestral line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people don't like tragedy, especially Americans. They like a happy ending. Like I think the British used to absorb tragedies a bit. You got Shakespeare that you can look at a tragedy, or the ancient Greeks, they had tragedies as well. But your American just wants that happy ending. So Walter, what's been your sort of main interests?
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I posted about, we've got the Young Society here in Atlanta, and we've got a nice little talk on tomorrow of ego death and other discussions. I have my little book club on the weekend, and we're working on West of Appomattox and just trying to learn a few things to better make it through the world and enjoy my hobbies and stuff of that nature.
I've looking a bit at Jung over the last few years. I shied away from him when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has a lot to offer, but you have to beware of him as well. But like he wasn't God,
Right.
but I imagine his followers think he's God.
They do.
And
They
I
do.
don't think he was absolutely right on everything. He had a lot of useful, interesting perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at one recent perspective where he's saying that Nazi Germany was, you might say, a state of possession by the archetype of Wotan. And I haven't really read through that, but that's quite an interesting one. I think for me, the big shock with Jung is in part that he's right. In the old days, they used to talk about body, soul, and spirit. And certainly what we call our soul or mind is very personal to us. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, Jung was saying what is our spirit is dependent on, more or less external archetypes. And this was a great shock. I realised or gained the belief that we don't have a personal spirit. And I struggled with that for years, that we are just subject to this sort of group spirit or group archetypes. What do you think of that, Walter?
Oh, yeah, we do have to deal with the group archetype and most issues and everything else, and people have to learn how to live together and work with that. And sometimes it runs into a personal daemon versus the group's daemon, trying to figure out how to relate to everything. So I find it interesting. I do tend to have a little bit more trouble in a group. I sublimate myself in most cases to try and get along with the rest of them. So it's not really the most enjoyable thing for me just to hang around with a bunch of people, although we do have our little science fiction convention down here at the end of this month called Dragon Con. So that's going to be our big party we're all going to.
Oh, okay. Getting in with the cosplay and all that sort of stuff, are you?
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
clever these days, the science fiction conventions.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the old days, you just went along and looked normal. I
Yeah,
tried.
yeah. I've got myself a nice big blow up costume of one of the game characters to wear around. So fun for that and all. Just getting all ready for all that excitement.
When I was a kid back in the 60s, yeah, I think, when I first saw stuff on TV like Earth versus the Flying Saucers or the day the Earth stood still, it just sort of blew my mind.
Yeah, those are great stuff to watch and everything else.
And then I think Lost in Space showed up and they showed that first thing of the show when you got the flying saucer crashing. I thought, oh, wow, got to
Yeah.
get into that. And then Star Trek showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Battlestar Galactica and all the rest of them, everyone was hopped on
Which
the.
wasn't too bad a show, actually, although I must have to say Galactica 80 is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yes, I know. I gave a copy to my library as a joke.
That was when I was about in my 20s. I watched that and it was so depressing. Although the last episode had the return of Starbuck and
Okay,
explained how Dr. Z originated.
okay.
You never saw the last episode of Galactica, did you?
I did. I saw most of them and everything else from the old to the new and everything in between.
They had the Cylon that Starbuck reprogrammed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that was the one good episode of Galactica 80, I thought. But then I watched the remake and I thought, wow, wow. And then at the end of it, what do? They land on this planet and join the ape men.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring that is just total
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, that's sort of, I mean, it does give a chance for it to circle around and have that internal repeat and everything else and all the rest of it. But it's sort of like, oh, come on, don't go that way.
That just wrecked the entire show for me. But I think that's another aspect that these modern shows take themselves so seriously. Like you look at the original Trek, and a lot of the time they're having a joke.
Yeah.
There's a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people don't go well with sarcasm and a sense of humor. And I mean, you really got to laugh at yourself sometimes to retain your objectivity too.
Yeah.
But people don't want to do that anymore.
But yeah, some of it's good and some of it's a little bit too takes itself too seriously, but I enjoy most of it.
Well, I remember in they had the World Con. I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh
They had the
yeah.
World Con 1985 was in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
I went and talked to the guy who was a NASA consultant for the film 2001.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. He was explaining to me that, like, you've got that sphere at the front of the Discovery, and he said, in their imaginary plans, a quarter of that was held the computer.
Okay.
That was just behind the the bridge.
Uh-huh.
You had the bridge, you had the pod bay beneath the bridge, but a whole quarter was devoted to that one computer. And of course, they didn't pick up on the idea that computers would become really small things one day.
Yeah, they were still back in the mainframe ideas and all. But miniaturization has made a lot of changes. Carry around more power in my pocket than we got used to get to the moon.
Well, most of the technological advances were sort of between 1850 and 1950. It's relatively slow since then, but one of the new things that came along was the computers,
Mm-hmm.
and that revived the market. The market was the world market was a bit dead in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they had an area for investment, the home office computer that carried things along for a while.
Mhm.
But of course, that all petered out by the time of the GFC, and now we're sort of in Nowheresville.
Mhm.
It's when people suddenly discovered, oh, I'm going to college. They sort of pictured it. As soon as I walk out of college, I'm going to get a job that suits me. And they used to all believe that. And then post GFC, they've awoken to the fact that that's not going to happen so easily anymore.
Mhm.
And that's why there's so much anger, I think, now.
Mhm.
People have realised it's very difficult to get ahead, particularly if you're honest.
Mhm.
And, there's a lot of corruption in government now because that's the way they get ahead, cheat the system.
Mhm.
It's all just a big show. They just want to act the way that they think that will get them the most votes. That's why Kamala Harris is so popular, is because she knows how to act to make people like her. She's popular. She's good at being popular.
Mhm.
Well, her laughs worry me.
She's good. I can tell just from, I'm not like, I don't know her. I don't I don't listen to her speak or anything. I've heard snippets and I can just tell she's probably really popular.
Mhm.
The thing I worry
Very
is
well liked, very friendly. Everyone loved her. Oh, Kamala. That's how you get ahead in politics.
you think she slipped her way to the top.
Probably. But who cares? That's my thing is like, why is that? Why would I mean, she's incompetent. I mean, that's clear whether she slept her way to the top or not. But everyone's posting these memes of like, oh, she gave all these BJs and oh, let's give her some knee pads. And like, who cares if she likes sucking dick? Why is that an issue? Why is she being vilified for liking to do that? If that's the truth.
I
And
haven't
would
seen
they
all the
even be
memes.
making fun of her if she liked to do that? Some women like it. Let's calm down. Why is that something to mock somebody for?
Good point.
Yeah. It would be like mocking a man for giving women for eating women.
That happened to
Oh, he
Donald.
loves to box. He loves to chaw box. Look at him.
That was how
No,
Clark
Donald
was.
Trump copped it for liking to grab pussy.
Well, that's
This is the
different.
new.
She
No,
didn't
no,
ask
no.
to
This is
have
the
it.
new thing.
She didn't ask for
No
that.
more toxic masculinity is allowed. That's a point against Donald.
Yeah, she didn't ask to have that, but that's the least of our worries that he grabbed a pussy. I mean, God, you gotta look beyond that at this point. Jeez. God. At least he has some, sound ideas about keeping the country from falling to pieces, I think.
Well, he's decisive. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and I think he's got some good policy plans. The immigration one being the best one. That's the only one I'm concerned with right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to say, but if you get immigrants, you want people who have got abilities.
Yeah, yeah. You don't just let people in. What the hell? And then in the other philosophy group, they're trying to shame me for that. They're like, Amy, if you saw a homeless person on the street, wouldn't you try and help that homeless person? I'm like, hell no. I wouldn't try to help that homeless person.
Yeah,
God
it's my observation.
damn.
I used to be very lefty until a few years ago. And
Yeah, it's
I
a nice
studied,
idea.
yeah, I studied the
Like it's
economy.
not practical. It's not practical. Doing that puts me at risk. puts my family at risk, puts my kids at risk. Same thing with illegal immigration. You're putting all of your citizens at risk by doing that.
That's
And
true.
you can say it's kind, and you can say, oh, how dare you not want all these fucking weirdo strangers bombarding our land,
And they think that
bombarding our space. Like
and they think that
you don't let 10 homeless people come in and stay in your house, because then you're putting yourself and your kids at risk financially, physically, emotionally, all kinds of shit. We don't have the resources. Same goes for our country.
yeah, the danger is you might do a lot of these people a favor, but they'll bite.
But we're not even doing them a favor by doing it. We're not even.
Well, I think they
They're
are.
better off in their own country helping out their own people. You know, like the people that are coming here should stay and help out their own country and go be productive and resourceful in their own
I think if you
country.
got a choice between Honduras and America, and I was in Honduras, I probably would try and make it to America.
Yeah, I know, but realistically, they would do better for their own people if they stayed there and tried to do something there.
Except for Donald Trump, who says if he loses the election, he's moving to Venezuela.
To be with that guy. Wait, what's the Venezuelan president? He's pretty Javier.
I was talking to another guy on Thursday night, and he's not dumb. He's crazy. And he believes that that's literally real. And I said, look, Trump's just joking.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
sarcasm.
Yeah.
No. He thinks it's all for real. And we're living in a dangerous world if people can't understand that some things are just a joke.
They're looking to shut down Mar-a-Lago right now, so he might change his mind real quickly.
Mhm.
Because it trying to keep him safe and trying to deal with all the roads that they have as their major thoroughfare that they're shutting down from that. It's a pretty big issue down there. They're sort of getting a little frustrated with Donald and all that.
Well, Donald's obviously a person that likes getting his own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He's
saw
been
some
successful
kids
with
put up
that.
I saw some kids put up a Trump banner near where I live, and then the next day it was gone. And I'm wondering if someone tore it down or if their landlord made them take it down. Which one? Or if they just took it down because people were screaming at them.
The big mistake, and I was lefty most of my life, but the big mistake they make is that they think that the freebies go on forever, that the cookie jar never gets empty.
Oh my God,
And
they're
when I
already
realized,
complaining. They're already complaining that they're not getting enough.
yeah,
Like half the population we already have are complaining they're not getting enough. We don't need more of those.
they're in one of the richest countries in the world, and they're not getting enough.
Yeah, we don't.
You know, if you parachuted some of these guys into equatorial Africa, they'd be in for an education.
Jeez. It's crazy. Just nuts.
Yeah, well, I realise that, you know, the stuff that's produced, the wealth that's created, doesn't come out of nowhere. There isn't an endless supply.
Right.
But this is the way most people
Yeah,
think.
as long as we all keep working, there's an endless supply.
Well, not even then,
Taxes.
because the world is up for grabs now, and the Chinese want a chunk, the Indians want a chunk.
That's why globalism is dangerous. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Now,
Well,
you
when I
think
was a
I'm
kid,
evil, but
the only industrial parts of the world were all white except for Japan. That was the only non-white industrial power.
yeah,
But
and they're
now,
like wanting to say that was bad.
well, industrial power is spread now, and it's no longer the same ball game. You know, America is like, or the West, if you like, it's got the attitude, we've got all the right ideas, and 50 years ago, they had the surplus of power to back up their ideas. Now you got these guys in government Hey, dudes, we're the West. We're the liberal West. We talk, you jump, and the rest of the world's going, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, those days are over. And the amazing thing is they haven't worked that out. And I'm not saying this because I agree with it. I'm simply stating a fact. I'd rather be living in the 1950s, but it's no longer the 1950s. That's the trouble.
I would if people didn't smoke everywhere.
Yeah, well, I did
Then
give
I
up
would.
smoking
Then I would.
15 years ago.
Everywhere. They smoke in the restaurants, they smoke in the movie theaters, they smoke in the office. Gross. They smoke on the trains.
Come on, they need those drugs to make it through their day.
Nasty.
You know what that's called?
What?
Think of Long John Silver.
Oh,
What did he have?
peg leg?
And
Hook
a
for a hand.
crutch.
Okay.
This is what drugs are. They're a crutch. And a lot of other things, we use them as crutches. Smoking's a crutch. I realise
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Well, smoking is a crutch, but it doesn't do anything. What is it? Just a stimulant?
Oh, I think it does. It does affect you. Yeah, it is. There is an aspect of the drug nicotine.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because when I quit smoking, I went kind of nuts.
I was preoccupied with playing a computer war game for months and months and months. Just couldn't tear myself away. And because that so occupied my time, I was able to stop smoking. I found that once I had given up buying smokes for a month, then I was, sort of just strong enough to push along without it. So I haven't had a smoke in 15 years.
That's great. For me, it's been since 2001 that I woke up after a night of binge drinking, cocaine, and chain smoking. I woke up on New Year's Day and I was so disgusted with myself. I was like, I need to do something. But I didn't really, I think when I think I was having a kind of like a life crisis and I didn't have the tools to change anything about my life. But I did have the power to quit smoking. And I was like, I'm never going to smoke again. I'm quitting smoking. And I remember just making that decision, like, I'm never going to smoke again. And I went to go get gas, and usually I go in and buy a pack of smokes because I was out and I woke up, I was out of cigarettes, and I started panicking, And I was like, oh my God, I don't have a cigarette. And then I was like, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't need something this bad. And I did it. I couldn't believe it.
Well, you just have to
I did
go
it.
back to your natural body chemicals.
I couldn't believe it. I actually did it. I actually stuck with it and I didn't have a cigarette. And all my smoking friends were like, she's not even bumming like a drag off my cigarette. She's just quitting. But then I would, instead of smoking, I just stayed in the bar and drank. So it kind of ended up being worse because I started drinking more. But at least I quit smoking.
I think it's easier to control drinking than smoking, though.
Yeah, it was good. I was very happy. And
Yeah,
then,
I went alcoholic. I think my biggest lesson was to record how many drinks I've got. So I got this
well, I
little.
see you chugging some wine there, Stephen.
Well, today it's
White
coffee.
wine. What?
Today it's coffee.
Oh,
Oh, you mean this?
yeah.
I'm just using that as a water bottle.
Okay. Like you're chugging it, man.
But I
You're
did
like,
drink the wine in the bottle.
okay. Yeah, I quit drinking too, which is really good.
Yeah, but I found the trick really important. I just drop a plastic coin in this thing. Every time I had a standard drink, I'd measure out what's a standard drink.
Oh,
How
yeah.
much I had that night was the most important thing. Because if you don't know how much you're drinking, well, you don't know. And it's bad news if you don't know.
Right. Yeah. Uh, Yeah. So,
Looks like I'm going to have to go out and buy a special glass bottle so people don't get the wrong idea.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say something and then I forgot what it was. Well, it's gone.
And we were talking about smoking, and then you went into drinking.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I don't love, but some people in recovery would say I'd hate those dreams where I dream I'm still using. And I would kind of like those dreams because when I woke up, I'd have this like terrible feeling of dread. Like I'd wake up like startled, like I would if I woke up and I didn't know where I was. That same kind of startled feeling. And then I, like a moment later, after I realized it was just a dream, I just have this wonderful, like, feeling rush of relief and like happiness that it was just a dream and that I actually didn't.
You mean you dreamt you were drinking?
Yes. And like in my dream, I was so disappointed and ashamed of myself for starting drinking again. Even if it wasn't out of control, I was like, God damn it, I'm drinking again. Why am I doing this again? And then I'd wake up and it would just be like, oh, thank God. Yeah, it was just a dream. I love
Well,
those.
you wake up like that sometimes. Yeah, I think I've had a few frightening experiences in my dream, and then I wake up. And even for a while, as you're waking up, you're thinking, oh no, oh, it's just a dream.
Yeah. And then I'm like, everything's not that bad. I never wake up and say everything's okay, but at least I'm not drinking.
Anyway, it's been great, but next week is Hegel. That should be interesting for me.
Yeah, what's next week? Tell me because I won't be able to open the link. I already know myself, so let me just write it down.
Oh, you need a PDF for next week. It's up there at the top of the chat. You just click on the link.
Okay. I'm gonna try it.
And you need a PDF reader for this one, I think. Isn't that the case, David? Like I'll use Sumatra for this one.
So I have to read this. I have to read philosophy. This should be fun. How long is it?
Yeah, I don't know how long it is. I'll have a check.
Oh, wait, it just popped up here. I think.
Oh, okay. It's quite long. So almost 300 pages.
Yeah, on the cases where it's obviously too long for a 7-day read,
Well,
then there's no requirement that you get to all the way to the end.
what if
would
I did
say
though? What if I did?
go as far as you can get, and there's no penalty if you don't get all the way to the end.
No, wait,
Read
this
as
is
much of it as
Hegel, a graphic guide. Is that what we're reading?
It's a story of Hegel's life in comic book form.
And oh,
So it's a sort of biography, I guess.
all right. Well, I might be able to read it there. It's got pictures.
if you don't go all the way to the end, no penalty. Read as much or as little as you'd like.
Thanks. That's nice of you.
And as always, again, if you would have any suggestions for future weeks, lay them on me.
Well, okay.
Anything you'd like to cover that you've always been interested in, let me know. Maybe we'll make some time on the calendar.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you very much. Yeah, great seeing you all, and I'll catch you later,
Bye.
David.
Hey, Stephen, I didn't get to ask you, Stephen, about Panic Fables. You didn't finish by any chance. Are you interested in continuing that to
Well,
get to the
yeah,
end of it?
continue if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do the rest of that Panic Fables
Next
at a
time
future week.
or at a future date?
In a
Okay.
different time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have fun.
Okay.
Right
Yeah.
then.
See you next time.
Yep.